So you're really coming to our wedding? My brother's fiancée. Lily raised an eyebrow. Honestly, I'm not sure how I'm going to explain you as my sister-in-law to our relatives, I admitted. Lily sighed and said, I'm Katie, a 37-year-old single woman who left school. I'm not embarrassed by my choices or my life. In fact, I take pride in living happily with my family despite our struggles. My upbringing was far from ideal. We were poor and my father was absent. My mother raised me and my younger brother, Georgie, on her own. Even when relatives offered help, she would always refuse, saying, please, let us ask for help only when we're truly desperate. We're managing for now. I often wondered why she didn't accept the help, but she said, if I take his money, it might upset his wife. I just wished she had taken it. Georgie was a bright kid, excelling in school and impressing everyone. I was thrilled, believing he was destined for greatness. His teacher even recommended him for a prestigious school, but we couldn't afford it. Georgie went to a less distinguished school, and I felt awful for him. So, I made the decision to drop out and start working. Truthfully, I wasn't a fan of studying, and the job market for dropouts wasn't great. I ended up in a small office, but when the owner retired, he recommended me to a reputable company. I worked hard and eventually earned a manager position by the age of 35, with a salary comparable to a college graduate. Despite my achievements, Lily seems to look down on me for my educational background. Georgie, now a successful salesman at a top company called ABC Trading, has a fiancé who, from the start, seemed to view me as a failure. I was taken aback when Georgie told me that Lily had asked, is your sister a bit of a problem? Lily, the daughter of a high-ranking ABC Trading executive, is beautiful but not exactly kind-hearted. During her visit to our modest apartment, she was visibly shocked and refused to come inside, complaining about the state of our home. She was embarrassed that her boyfriend, Georgie, was living in such conditions. Using her father's influence, she managed to move Georgie into family housing that he otherwise wouldn't have qualified for. Lily insisted that we would only be allowed to live in the company housing once we were married, but there was a catch. The housing had strict visitor restrictions. Outsiders weren't allowed, and even close relatives had to apply in advance. I joked, well, I guess I won't be able to visit often. I wanted to see how the happy newlyweds are doing, to which Lily's mother coldly responded, that's exactly why we chose to have them live in a family house. Her rudeness didn't stop there. On the day she came to our home, Lily whispered to Georgie, just out of his earshot, since your mother-in-law is poor, Georgie will be stuck paying off his student loans even after marriage. Shouldn't parents cover tuition? She shot a disdainful look at my mother. The truth was, my mother and I had saved for Georgie's college fund, but he chose to cover it himself. Despite their pretensions, Georgie is fully aware of their difficult personalities, which they mask behind their privileged airs. I'd hoped my mother could also move into the company housing, but Lily said siblings of the husband weren't eligible, leaving my sister-in-law alone. It seemed unfair. When I mentioned that I graduated from college on a scholarship, Lily's mother responded, you must want to relieve your mother as soon as possible. You're such a considerate person. Lily and her family often spoke about their kindness, and although we chose to stay silent rather than criticize them, it was a mistake. They soon began excluding both me and my mother, particularly me. With the wedding just 2 weeks away, Lily reached out unexpectedly. Sister-in-law, are you planning to attend our wedding? She asked. It's going to be quite a lavish event with around 150 guests, including the president and managing director of ABC Corporation. Since it's the marriage of the daughter of the head of the department and Georgie, we're concerned there might not be enough seats. She then added, I worry that one poorly dressed sister-in-law might make the other guests uncomfortable. What do you mean by poorly dressed? I asked. Oh, I just meant that I'm planning to wear a formal outfit for the wedding, she replied. Lily looked me up and down with a dismissive air. I'm guessing your idea of proper attire is probably a suit from a catalog costing around 10,000 yen, right? It's going to be awkward to be surrounded by guests in high-end brands. Honestly, I'd prefer if you didn't come to the wedding. Her implication that people like me didn't belong at such an event was infuriating. I asked, what about my mother? She doesn't have high-end clothes either. I understand that, I replied, but I can't not invite Georgie, especially since he's a valuable member of the company. I don't want to be embarrassed by our appearance, so we'll make sure my mother has suitable clothing. Despite my frustration with Lily's attitude, I knew it was important to dress appropriately for such a high-profile event. I tried to convince myself that she was merely trying to prevent any embarrassment for my mother, but then Lily's next words left me stunned. You'll need to purchase that dress yourself. It's an Oscar de la Renta evening gown, and you should budget around $10,000 for it. Wait, I can't afford that, I protested. If you can't pay, then what, do you plan to stand next to my parents in a cheap dress? She countered. I was at a loss for words and asked if Georgie knew about this. I haven't told him yet. He expects you and your mother to attend, but having an unmarried mother and a dropout sister might reflect poorly on his future, Lily said. I don't think having a single mother or being a dropout should impact anyone's career in today's world, I replied. Determined not to be overshadowed by Lily's prejudice, I raised my voice. This is my only brother's wedding, so my mother and I will definitely attend. We'll handle our own attire, so we won't be covering those expenses. If you can't tolerate it, then perhaps it's best if we're not invited at all. After relaying the situation to my mother, I sought her advice. She looked disheartened for a moment but then brightened up and said with determination, Don't worry, Katie, I'll make sure Georgie's day is special. Leave it to me. She made a phone call, and soon revealed something surprising. On the wedding day, the ceremony took place in the chapel. Although I was tempted to inform Georgie about Lily's comments, I decided to stay silent, trusting my mother's judgment. Georgie's demeanor seemed tense. Was it just nerves, or had my mother shared something with him? At the reception, I was shocked to see the seating chart. My mother's name was listed in the family section, but there was no seat for me. Wait, there's no seat for me, I exclaimed. Despite my prior agreement to attend, it was clear they were trying to exclude me from the reception. Lily's parents appeared, casting me disdainful glances. I can't believe you didn't understand when Lily said not to come to the reception, Lily's father sneered. We allowed you to attend the ceremony because we had no other choice, but we don't want you bringing your poverty into the reception. Please leave, dropout sister. Ah, like mother, like daughter. Fine, I'll go home, I retorted. As I turned away from Lily's smirking parents, I noticed Mr. Ashcroft, the CEO of Nico Mimi Corporation, a prominent business partner of Lily's father, standing with Georgie. Mr. Ashcroft, thank you so much for coming, I said. Katie, you're in the way. I apologize, Mr. Ashcroft, we're just asking this unwanted guest to leave. Mr. Ashcroft then spoke firmly. If you insist on kicking Katie out, then I, as her father, will also abstain from the reception. Excuse me, father, I was taken aback. What do you mean? Lily's parents asked, clearly stunned. Mr. Ashcroft repeated, as I said, Katie is my daughter. It turned out that Mr. Ashcroft and my mother had been involved in a relationship in their 20s. At the time, Mr. Ashcroft was an executive on the path to becoming the CEO of Nico Mimi Corporation, while my mother had recently lost her parents in an accident and was left to fend for herself. Their relationship faced significant challenges from the start. When my mother became pregnant with me, Nico Mimi Corporation was struggling on the brink of bankruptcy, faced with widespread opposition to their marriage, which many believed would only further harm the company's prospects. My mother proposed postponing their marriage until the company's situation improved. She chose to raise me as a single mother, enduring societal stigma, while Mr. Ashcroft focused on reviving the company. Unfortunately, when my mother became pregnant with Georgie, the company's situation had still not stabilized. During this time, the daughter of a CEO from another company, who had offered assistance, proposed marriage to Mr. Ashcroft. My mother, recognizing the opportunity for Mr. Ashcroft to secure his future and the company's, decided to step aside. She told him, I'll raise our children on my own. You don't need to acknowledge them. Just find happiness with that woman and restore your company. After marrying the CEO's daughter, Mr. Ashcroft managed not only to save the company but also to expand it into a successful publicly listed enterprise. However, he and his wife divorced a year ago due to her infidelity. I then sought to reconnect with my mother, and shortly before Georgie's wedding, I met with Mr. Ashcroft, the company president, and my father. Oh, I recognize him, Mr. Ashcroft said, observing. Yes, he was the uncle who visited our apartment a few times during my childhood, offering my mother financial help. He turned out to be President Ashcroft. I stared at him in surprise, and he smiled, saying, "You've endured a lot. I've heard about the wedding and your situation from your mother." President Ashcroft, now Georgie's business partner, was well aware of Georgie's abilities. He confided, "I'd like Georgie to take over Nico Mimi Corporation if he proves worthy, but if he fails to see through deceitful people and disregards his family, I can't trust him with the company." Thus, he used the wedding to assess Georgie's character. The day before the wedding, President Ashcroft and my mother revealed the truth about their past relationship and the Lilly family's attempt to exclude my mother and me. Faced with a series of revelations, Georgie, who had previously trusted Lilly and her parents, approached the wedding with a heavy heart. His discomfort during the ceremony was evident. When he saw that my name was missing from the reception seating chart and witnessed Lily's parents attempting to exclude me, Georgie realized that my mother and I had been telling the truth. He took Lily to the reception desk and announced, "Lily, Mr. and Mrs. Lily, I am calling off this marriage. I refuse to be part of a family that disrespects and disregards my mother and sister." "Hold on, you can't just say that out of nowhere," Lily protested. "Yes, this is a misunderstanding. We've already had the ceremony," her parents added in a panic. But Lily, still not fully grasping the situation, made a shocking remark. "Georgie, are you really choosing that lowly mother and daughter over me? You need to know your place." Lily's parents, now visibly shaken, tried to calm her down, but it was too late. As I explained everything to Lily in detail, she broke down in tears on the spot. President Ashcroft added, "We may need to reconsider our business dealings with your company," which caused Lily's parents to weep and apologize profusely. The entire reception witnessed this scene, and the event was ultimately cancelled. Georgie severed all ties with Lily without ever submitting the marriage registration. Shortly after, I received a furious phone call from Lily. "You're the reason I couldn't marry Georgie. I'm going to bill you for the compensation and the venue cancellation fees." "Oh really?" I responded. "Then I'll sue you for defamation." "Everyone at the reception heard the abusive language from you and your parents." Lily fell silent. I also mentioned that her father had been removed from handling transactions with Nico Mimi Corporation, demoted, and sidelined. "I should probably inform your father that I was threatened by Lily. That might lead Nico Mimi Corporation to completely sever ties with ABC Trading. Don't you think that would cost your dad his job?" Ignoring Lily's tearful pleas, I ended the call. Serves her right. After canceling his engagement to Lily, Georgie joined Nico Mimi Corporation and has been working diligently to become his father's right-hand man. My parents are planning their wedding soon. Though my mother is somewhat reserved about having a wedding at 60, she's genuinely thrilled as we choose her wedding dress together. While I've been focused on my own work, I've started to imagine wearing my mother's wedding dress someday.